first questions would be like, oh, okay, let me hear some of your stuff. Like, what is your site, right? I know you guys know a lot of fake rappers, right? Like if somebody from your hometown who's doing rap, they have a YouTube page, right? They have some YouTube clips. They got something, like something that, if you met like, you know, the editor of Vogue on an elevator, you need to be like, and she's like, okay, what's your link? You need to be able to be like, this is my link and this is, you know, this is my stuff. Like you can't just say like, I'm a rapper. No, just believe me. No, like it doesn't work like that. You really have to have a web presence. How many of you guys have blogs? So you guys should all be like that. Like you have to like something. Like if I am into like, if I'm into opera, you know, I'm gonna have a blog where I like talk about opera. And I'm gonna say it like in my voice. So this is my brand, like this is my thing. Like if this brother loves glasses, like, and he makes a blog all about glasses, I'm gonna know that guy because I'm like, oh yeah, that's a dude who blogs about glasses. And one day, you know, maybe a corporation, somebody who, you know, sells glasses, they're like, let's hire this guy to, you know, do some weird random blog for us. Like this is obviously his thing, he already has followers, like this is his bag, he knows, you know, I'm gonna get that guy. Like you should have enough personality, like whatever it is you cover, like that you go all the way with it, like you are OD, like you know everything about this and you write about it, like your perspective of it, to the point where somebody will be like, girl, let me give you a book deal. Like you are great at this, you know? Because it's fun, like, you know, you of course you want views from your friends and stuff, but no, you gotta go beyond that. You want to be an expert in whatever it is. Like just choose a thing and go ham. Like you are in it, you know?
So it seems like, okay, so this is like personal, but if you're like in, I know it's like entertainment or you say like news, but should you like pick something in news? I don't know, entertainment and news is like so broad. Like should you like
So, like when I was starting out, like one of my first stories at the AP, this was like, you know, many years ago. I remember one of my coworkers was like, what are you looking at? And I was looking at the YBF. It was brand new. You guys know what the YBF is, the blog, the YBF. I don't know what like gossip blogs you guys go to, but it was new. And it just covered like whatever entertainment. It was brand new, so it was a new field, and she was able to just like take off with it, right? It was this girl, Natasha, she lived in New Orleans. After Katrina happened, she was out of a job, she was living on her auntie's couch. She decided, I want to cover entertainment. And she did. And so now she has like this huge site, she's getting paid, these sponsors and all this stuff, right? Well, when she started out, there wasn't a lot of competition, so of course she could just jump in and do this thing. But now, if you start an entertainment blog, you need to have like something, there has to be something special, like something that'll make you stand out from the pack. You know what I mean? So like if you do entertainment, like you need to find, I mean, some kind of in. I don't know what it is, maybe it'll be that you cover a certain genre, like a certain niche, or maybe you have a funny like sort of writing voice. You know what I mean? Like what blogs do you follow?
I don't really follow any blogs right now. I kind of like stick to e-news. Like I'm like obsessed. So like, I don't know. Should I start following more blogs though and start researching?
Well, you should like see what your competition is doing.
Okay.
Before we even start. So like, maybe a couple years ago, like I was looking for a job, and my old editor was like, you know, I was looking for gigs. I still felt like I was sort of like an aspiring reporter. I had written like a lot, you know, like, but I still felt like I was like aspiring. And she said, no, you're a reporter. Like you are a reporter. Say it, you're a reporter. And I'm like, oh my God, I am a reporter. You know, like it had never dawned on me. You guys are reporters, or you're journalists now. But the question is like, how well are you living up to that title? You're a journalist like right now. Like this all counts. This is counting towards your bigger goal. So you should be doing everything that a journalist should be doing. Watching your competition, and then even looking beyond that, like reading what they're not reading. You know, like following what they're not on yet. You know what I'm saying? Like really just, you need to be a nerd. Like this is no time to be cool. Like you need to be a nerd about everything. Like you need to be the nerd who gets up in the morning and, you know, you take 10 minutes out of your day and you go to the New York Times and you read what the big stories are. Like you need to be doing that. If you're entertainment, you need to wake up in the morning and be like, what are they doing today? Because bloggers get up early. Like you can't come traipsing in with the story at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. or even noon. Like, you gotta be up, before people get to interviews at work. So it's like, you gotta get up early, you gotta be a nerd about it, you gotta really research, you gotta like see what is out there. So do that now, like not later, but like today, when you go home. Like, who do you wanna be? Like, who do you wanna be in the game? Like, who are some of your favorite journalists? Look at them and be like, what are they doing? Like, what are they tweeting about? Who are they following on Twitter? Like, I'm gonna follow them. Because whatever they know, I wanna know it too. Because one day I wanna take their job. So, yeah. I met, a couple years ago, I met this lady, Lola Ogunike. I don't know if you guys ever heard, she's a CNN, like, pop culture correspondent. And I was like, oh my God, I wanna be a journalist, I wanna write about entertainment news, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, I was like, what? Like, tell me, what should I do? And she was like, do you read? And I'm like, yeah. Don't we all read? But she was like, what do you read? And I was like, Vibe and like The Source and like whatever hip hop magazines were hot then. I was like, and I was feeling like I'm all in. And she was like, you know what? That's good, but you need to be reading The New Yorker. You need to be reading The Economist. You need to be reading The Wall Street Journal. You have to like do more than what the people in your group are doing. Like, you have to be like stepping out. You have to get new ideas, because otherwise you're just living in this little bubble and you all are just recycling the same old stuff. No, be that person who like went over here and learned something like totally new, and then you came back with it, and it's like you were on the new stuff. Like, oh, then where they coming with that? You know what I mean? Like, have new, fresh ideas. Be that person.
How did you approach some of your early internships? I mean, did you have a lot of fear when you were like stepping out of your comfort zone? I know you did some internships at Herald Times, and then you went to Indianapolis. I mean, you went to New York. I mean, how were you? Because you're from Gary, right?
Gary.
And so that was a big step for you.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing your mom was probably like, you're not going to New York the first time you said you wanted to go.
So I got my first internship like actually before I started college, I interned at WGBE 88.7, like community radio, which was like kind of boring, but it was cool because I got to see what the inside of a radio station looked like, and I got free CDs again. So I was happy. And then the next summer I was like, okay, I'm going into broadcast, so I'm gonna intern at like a TV station. And I did, and I shadowed this woman who I thought was like really grown. Like, in my mind, I felt like she was really grown. Looking back, she was probably literally like 22. It was probably her first job out. And she would one-man band all of her like stuff, so we like carried this 80-pound tripod on, but it was really heavy. And do these little stories. But it gave me a chance to kind of like, like learn how to white balance a camera and like how to schedule interviews and stuff like that. And I was out in the field. And it exposed me like to other reporters and producers, and it was the first time that somebody really hated on my journalism. Because I remember there was a lady at the station, and she asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to move to New York, and I want to cover music, and I want to write about like hip hop and R&B, and like I want to do entertainment. And she was like, well, yeah, everybody says they want to go to New York. And that was the first time that somebody I felt like was just being like an outright hater, Like, if I didn't already know what I really want to do, I'd be like, well, dang, I guess I won't go to New York. But that really like fired me up. So anyway, the next summer, I went to another TV station. I went to WTHR in Indianapolis, so I was away from home. And I stayed on IUPUI's campus, and it was really like being in the dorm. Sometimes nobody was really around. It was kind of a bummer, but you just have to make sacrifices. And it was a good experience for me because I went out on shoots, and we would sit around outside all day, and like, I was like, I don't know, is this really what I want to do? But it gave me a chance to really see it, because you really don't know until you're like in the field and you're really like seeing what that is like. So I did that, and then the summer after that, I got a scholarship through the journalism school from Marjorie Blewett, who gave me 2 pieces of advice, one of which I don't really remember what it was. But the second piece was, don't sit at your desk, you'll gain weight. Which actually is really true. But anyway, so I was at I went to the HT, and I think that was probably one of my best experiences because it was the first time like I had a beat and I was like going out into the field and I was covering like the most random Bloomington stories ever, like about this guy.
Do you guys all know what the HT is?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Everyone in the room.
You guys, the Herald
Some of the
Times.
younger kids might not.
Local newspaper.
So
Bloomington.
there actually is a Bloomington outside of IU. Who would have thought it? I had no idea. But when I went out, and it was kind of weird because it was kind of scary, like driving around random Bloomington and like going to some guy's house who was into natural landscaping, which basically he just didn't mow his lawn. Like, that was basically what it was. But I still covered this story, like, and I was happy too because I felt like, oh, I got a clip with my name on it. It was in the paper. Like, yeah. So I did like a bunch of little weird stories like that, and it was good. And my money for my scholarship paid for me to live here because you have to think about that too, like living and stuff like that. So it was a good experience. And I feel like that really like helped because it set me apart from a lot of people who didn't have reporting experience. And even though I wanted to be a broadcaster, I just felt like, storytelling is storytelling, and when you can do the kind of storytelling where you get published and you are covering like some weird random stuff, you can just do anything. You know what I mean? If I can cover like, therapy, like animal therapy, like, I mean, she can cover anything, I'm sure, And it showed that I was flexible and then I could adapt. And then it also showed me like what it's like in a newsroom, where I probably would be the only brown person. And it would not be the first time, and it wouldn't be the last, which is great. You guys are here, you're around, but a lot of times you'll be by yourself, but that's okay, because somebody has to go first. I actually logged a bunch of tape from Redman's interview, and like, in between the shots, he would be like arguing with his baby's mom on the phone, just crazy stuff. But like I was just sitting in a cubicle, like looking through video, writing like 2 minutes, 5 seconds. Red man opens refrigerator, like just logging all this tape, like logging tape with Snoop Dogg. Super not super fun. I never met any celebrities. I think Such and Pop from MTV was the only person who ever like walked in the room, and it was boring. But it was cool because I was at MTV, and I put on my resume, and I can be like, "Ha, I was at MTV." They actually offered me a job at the end, but I wasn't getting paid very much. So I was like, I kept looking for a gig. So Complex, I still had like a day off, or 2 days off in my week when I was interning, and so I went on the Complex website, which I would never really think to do now. And I looked up the name of like a secretary who worked for Complex. And somehow I found this woman's number. And I called her like every day. And I left her voice messages. And she actually hit me back. If somebody did that to me, I'd be kind of creeped out, like, how did you get my number? And why are you hitting me back?
You mean her personal number?
It was at the office.
Oh,
No,
office.
at the office. I'm not too far, guys. It's not no crazy. And she actually had me come in, and I got hired on the spot to be an intern. And it was like a really cool place to be in Complexes. There's like all these freshly dressed people like doing all this cool stuff. And I didn't get to do any of the cool stuff necessarily, but I was transcribing interviews, which is probably the most boring task in journalism, to transcribe interviews. But I got my name in the masthead, and I was like, it's the Pharrell cover. You can't beat that. I still have that issue at home. So then, the end of the summer comes, right? My internships are over. I have to look for a job. My mother is like, are you coming home, or are you getting a job? Because I'm not funding extra stuff. And so I'm looking for jobs everywhere. I'm like applying to everything. I'm living in student housing. I'm in New York. It's the first time I've seen a roach, like in a space that I'm in. I'm like, wow, right? So I'm applying for like 1 million jobs. 2 places get back to me. One of the places was like, I don't even remember the name of the company, but what's your last name? Lopez. It was like the Lopez company, and then the person who signed the email was like Mr. Lopez. And I was like, I don't know about that one. And then the other job I applied for was an editorial assistant, and I applied through Journalism Next. And it was the AP, and they had me come in, and I showed them my little clips from the Herald Times, and I told them about how I covered natural landscaping in Bloomington, Indiana, and these other random weird stories. And the lady was pretty impressed, and she hired me. And I was super happy, look, I had a job. So I worked there, I was an editorial assistant answering phone calls and making calendars and keeping tally of how many American soldiers died in Iraq. Not fun stuff. But I still had in mind my dream job, which was to interview people. I was literally at my desk. This isn't usually how life works, but I was sitting at my desk and I was like, God, please let me figure out a way to write music reviews. Like, please, let me bump into somebody, let me talk to somebody. I literally got up from my desk, I walked to the bathroom, and I was washing my hands, and who walks in? Like, one of the music editors, and she literally is like, oh, hi, how you doing? Actually, it was a black woman, so I know she knew, like, we're one of a few. So she was really kind, and she spoke to me, which you guys should all be cognizant of, too, when you go into these places, speak to people, talk to people. And she was like, oh, she asked me, like, who I was and what I wanted to do, and she was like, if you want to write music reviews, let me know. And I was like, yes, I would love to write music reviews for you. And I started writing music reviews, and my first one was horrible, but she helped me through it, and she actually took time to help me edit, and like that was it. I started writing music reviews. And then I was writing for this little service that the Associated Press had where I covered like bingo, I covered like black blogs. These are all things that people on their staff weren't doing. And so they were like, okay, if you want to cover it, okay. And I did, and I had more clips, but now it was like, I'm writing stuff and it shows up like in a paper in India, because it's the Associated Press. And so of course, like, I'm geeked up even more, because I'm like, I'm in India, my name's in India. So anyway, I did that, and then I had like my first interviews. I think my first interview was Keke Palmer, and like they sent me to this random house in Harlem, and she was eating Doritos the whole interview, but she was super sweet, and it was a good first interview, but I was still answering phones, and still making calendars, and still working from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., and I never had weekends off, and it was rough. Eventually I got promoted. Oh, so New York. When I moved to New York, I had this vision. I had watched a lot of Sex and the City, and I thought my apartment would look like that, but it looked more like that. Oh, no. That wasn't my real apartment. But the apartment I did have, in real life, it was on this block, and I literally lived like, I was like right in here. And so we could always hear people like going to the liquor store and going to the tax preparers, and people at the hair shop getting $15 blowouts. People walking to Popeyes, it always smelled like Popeyes.
Oh, that's great.
I only had I had one window in my bedroom, and the window was to the living room. So, yes, to the living room. I don't even think it was a real bedroom. I'm not sure even how they called this a real bedroom. I couldn't put an air conditioner in. I would literally stand in front of the refrigerator, like just to get a little relief, because it would be so hot. It was rough. New York is a rough, fun, crazy, dirty city. So anyway, yeah, so that was my first apartment, was on that bus with 2 other people. Then I moved to Chicago. I got a promotion after a couple years of making calendars, answering phones, and other little jobs that nobody else really wanted to do. And I was happy to be in Chicago, and I covered Lady Gaga and Erykah Badu at Lollapalooza and all kind of cool stuff like that. But my main job really was I was a broadcast editor, which meant, and I was covering the Midwest, which meant that I would get these stories, like these full-length stories about like deer populations in North Dakota. Okay. And I would literally be at work from 3 in the afternoon till like 2 in the morning. I would be on the 25th floor. I would be the only person on the whole floor. Like I had least seniority, so I would be working these weekends. First of all, being on the 25th floor alone is literally the creepiest thing you could possibly do. I don't really know anything creepier, but it was creepy. Going to the bathroom, I'm scared, like running around, and then I'm running back to my desk writing about deer and crime. Yeah, like wheat in Minnesota, just stuff that's totally out of my, I don't know anything about wheat, but I was writing about it. And I was writing about it for many, many hours. And I was still writing about music. So after about 2 years, I decided, you know what? I have had enough. They were like, we're going to put you on overnight. I was like, I'm not going to be able to do it. Like, that's it. Because I feel like you always do have to have, you pay your dues, but you should know your boundaries. There's going to be some ugly work. You're going to have some ugly hours. But after some years of just being like, first of all, when you're young and you're working in a place and it takes all your weekends and all your nights, you don't get to hang out at all. That's not, life isn't all about hanging out, but you need a little bit of that. You get to be able to be well-rounded. So I quit, right? And I look back on it and I think I probably should have negotiated it better. I probably should have looked for a next step and, try to figure out a job situation. Maybe done the overnight for a little while just to see what it was like. But I quit. And this is when we go into what I call the blue period. This is the sad period. I signed up with a temp agency because I still had to pay my bills and I still had to have, I needed to pay my rent, So the temp agency set you up with these random jobs, and I ended up working for Groupon. This is a shot of Groupon's office. So pretty much imagine me sitting on one of these blue exercise balls, and I'm entering data about hotels in Wisconsin or something stupid. And I remember thinking to myself, I may never write again. This could be over. I've put all these years in and I quit this job. It could be over for me. And I feel like that's when I really realized journalism is one of those jobs where it's hard work, but you're not gonna find that kind of fulfillment. If you really love to write, a lot of jobs you don't get to do your passion. There are people out there who are just doing work to just do work. But when you do journalism, that's something you love, right? Mm-hmm. But I really felt oh my God, I'm never gonna get a job again. But I was just okay, whatever. I kept applying for things. And then I guess maybe after I learned my lesson, one of my old managers at the Associated Press, who I still had good relationships with, she told me that ABC was looking for somebody to cover urban music, hip hop, R&B. And so I moved back to New York, and I did that. So I was interviewing Common and Del Varner and 50 Cent and Miguel and just all these random people. And this is T.I. I was interestingly, this is my second time interviewing him because, and this is probably one of my biggest mistakes I've ever made in journalism. Don't tell anybody. So I go in to interview T.I., and he's super duper cool. Just the coolest dude ever. So we rapping, talking and stuff. I'm feeling we are homies. And then I get back to my desk and I'm plugging that recorder. None of it. Zero of it was on the recorder. Do you know when I told my boss, we won't even speak? But I knew she knew that I was sad too, that I messed it up. But so embarrassing. Super duper embarrassing. Not to mention just dumb, just so. It was a mistake, though. Of course, it happened with T.I. So anyway, luckily I had good relationships, and I was able to talk to his PR person, and they set up another interview. And then, so that's it. And bam, now I still freelance. I'm back in school. I'm going to Chicago Portfolio School, so I can go into advertising. I think I'll always write. I feel like I've built up enough relationships in the industry that I can still, write about music whenever I fancy. So, yeah. And it all started at IU. So yeah.